Good morning and welcome. My name is Sarah Carlson and I serve on your Fellowship Board of Directors as well as on the Sunday Services Committee. And my pronouns are she, her. I want to thank you all for being with us today. And if you're joining us by Zoom, I'd like to invite you to stay on afterwards for our virtual coffee hour to join in the conversation with kindred spirits and to introduce yourself if that feels comfortable. And we'd love to get to know you better. If you'd like more information about the fellowship, please sign our virtual guest book. It's at uufames.org/guestbook. This morning, I want to welcome back Sue Haug, who's serving as accompanist and is providing special music for us. Sue is a former member of the UUFA and now lives near Madison, Wisconsin, and she's the mother of Dan Haug. And it's also my pleasure to welcome our new interim minister, Reverend A.J. Galazan. And many have asked how to pronounce his last name. The way I remember it is there's aw in the middle of his name. Galazan. Okay. Yeah, to make that point. He began just this week and has a few words for us. A.J.
Good morning, Ames. It's wonderful to be here with you today. My name is Reverend A.J. Galazan. I'm your interim minister. And I was going to do a whole thing about how to pronounce my name, but so let's skip that. I just completed a 2-year interim in Denton, Texas. And I was hoping that Iowa would be a cooler place. Oh my goodness. My permanent home is in Cornucopia, Wisconsin. It's a tiny village on the shores of Lake Superior. That's where I live with my cat, Beanie, my husband, Matthew, and my 2 standard poodles, Ziggy and Mouse. Iowa is a lot closer to Wisconsin than Texas. And although I'm very excited to explore Ames, I hope to get home occasionally. Interim ministry is all about valuing the in-between time. Reverend Kent's ministry has come to a close. And before you embark on the next part of your journey, this is a special time of reflection and wonder, a time of evaluation, preparation, and expectation. I am a temporary companion in your work. As we get to know each other, I hope to share with you deep words and face challenges and forge connections that build relationships both within and beyond this congregation. I am a temporary companion, and I will keep reminding you of that. I enjoy a flexibility and a freedom that a settled minister may not have. If there's something on your mind, please let me know. I will be relying on your contributions, your comments and suggestions, and your compassion as we travel together. I am a temporary companion. But there's no need to rush. In fact, we will actually get more things done if we are mindful and patient with each other. This is a time of getting ready. And I have only 3 goals right now. Number 1, to listen to you. Number 2, to breathe with you. And number 3, to be kind to you. We are here for each other, and I feel blessed to be among you. For those uncomfortable with the word blessed, feel free to substitute the word grateful. I am grateful to be in your presence as we create the beloved community here at the UU Fellowship of Ames, Iowa. Thank you for your warm welcome.
After the service this morning, please linger in the fireside room outside the doors for Sunday, and welcome Reverend AJ in a time of fellowship and informal conversation. We have frozen yogurt from Orange Leaf, and you can build your sundae from an assortment of toppings for a cooling refreshment. We have a few dairy-free in our assortment, so we ask that if you would save the dairy-free for those who have dietary needs and not just take it if you don't eat dairy-free. So we have some for those who need it. Thank you. So on behalf of this caring, nurturing congregation, I welcome each and every one of you into this sacred space. Here we invite you into an experience of transformation, hope, renewal, and connections, which may inspire you to understand life in new ways. Thanks for being here.
Our chalice lighting this morning is by Leslie Takahashi. We gather as many drops. We gather as many drops, each winding our own path down life's surface and ruts. Here we pool together as a single body, flowing together for a time. Together we are a stream, at times even a river, for with our shared force, we can travel towards oceans of meaning and seas of connection. We are pleased to have some live music this morning, live accompanists. So we are able, we'll be doing some singing this morning. So our first hymn is Rising Green. If you have a hymnal, feel free to use it. We'll also have the lyrics up on screen. So number 1068 in the teal hymnal, Rising Green.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your voices with us this morning. Our first reading this morning is Mary Oliver's The Pond.
Oh, wait, not.
We want the mics of the music comments. I had that order differently. I said we skipped that.
Sorry.
All right.
It's so great to be here. Thank you. Thanks for your very warm welcome. I just thought you might want to know a little bit about the music I'm playing. These are three very well-known American composers for their day. Edward MacDowell, like most composers in the late 19th century, studied in Europe. But when he came back to the U.S., he lived in Boston briefly, and then he was invited to become the first professor of music at Columbia. And then was invited to create a music department there. So was really at the forefront of music education in this country. It wasn't entirely a happy time, but one of his very favorite places was a farm that he and his wife bought in New Hampshire. And so their summers were always spent at the farm. And that's where his creativity flourished. So the piece I'm playing is from a set called Woodland Sketches, which was written there at the farm. And that property eventually became an artist colony. And you may have heard of the MacDowell Colony, the MacDowell Artist Residency. And the next composer, Amy Cheney Beach, has a connection because the piece I'm playing was actually written when she was in residence at the MacDowell Colony. She was an amazing composer, one of the first successful American female composers with large-scale works. So her symphonies were performed by major U.S. symphonies. And when she was in residence there at the MacDowell Colony, she heard the wood thrush, the hermit thrush. And she was just inspired by its very creative and apparently very melodic call. And so she attempted to notate it note by note. And so the piece I'm playing has these very elaborate trills and calls, warbles, that was inspired by her time there. And then the third composer, Charles Griffiths, also studied in Europe. And he was very much inspired by the Impressionist composers. So this piece is a very beautiful reflection of the lake at evening. And you will hear the waves lapping against the shore continuously through the piece with this beautiful ostinato in the left hand. His life was cut short. He was an amazing composer, but he died of the Spanish flu, the influenza, at the age of 35. So I think you know that many composers and many artists have always found inspiration in nature, but these particular pieces I think are just lovely reflections of the titles of the piece. And for those of you who are never sure whether you should clap after the special music, this is just to say that today you don't need to. The pieces all end in the most peaceful and beautiful way. So just enjoy the way in which the final notes just blend into the silence.
Thank you, Sue. Our first reading this morning is Mary Oliver's The Pond. August of another summer, and once again I am drinking the sun, and the lilies again are spread across the water, and now I know what they want is to touch each other. I've not been here for many years, during which time I kept living my life. Like the heron who can only croak, who wishes he could sing, I wish I could sing. A little thanks from every throat would be appropriate. This is how it has been, and this is how it is. All my life I have been able to feel happiness, except whatever was not happiness, which I also remember. Each of us wears a shadow. But just now it is summer again, and I am watching the lilies bow to each other, then slide on the wind and the tug of desire, close, close to one another. Soon now, I'll turn and start for home, and who knows, maybe I'll sing. And in fact, I invite everyone to join in singing this morning. With our return to hybrid services and our welcoming of Reverend AJ, we are well reminded of a world in motion. Please rise in body and or spirit and join in singing number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning. What a difference a piano makes in the room. Thank you so much. It is a regular tradition in this fellowship to share our joys and concerns through a ritual of candle lighting. For today's service, as we engage in a water communion ritual, we are setting aside the element of fire and embracing the element of water. As UU Minister Gary Kowalski reminds us, we draw from many wells, from oceans and rivers, from lakes and streams, from the muddy Mississippi to the roaring Rio Grande, from faraway places and from ponds and puddles in our own backyards. Yet all are refreshing, each rivulet is cleansing, and each capable of nurturing and sustaining life. And so as we gather today in this community, a community also capable of nurturing and sustaining life, each of us is invited to bring or pour water into our communal bowl. Following an idea inspired by Darcy E. Lane, I invite you today to join in this ritual in whichever of the three ways draws you forward. If you wish, while you pour, you or another member of your family can briefly share the source of the water and what transformations or journeys, spiritual or physical, are symbolized by this water. If you wish, you may share water symbolizing the storms of our lives, the concerns and sorrows you carry on your heart today, and allow this vessel to be one of receiving and healing as it absorbs your storm. And again, you're welcome to say a word or two about the significance of this water, or pour in your water without saying anything at all. Third, if you wish, you may pour water that reminds you of the well springs of your life, the water that sustains you, the joys that give you hope and buoy you up, and you are welcome to share what is giving you joy this morning. Those joining us today through the miracle of technology, I invite you to open up your chat and share your journey, your storm, or your joy with us. I will share what you type, and Dan will pour water in our communal bowl, even as you pour water at home as you are able. Similarly, if you are here in the building and would like to participate but prefer to stay seated, raise your hand and we'll be sure to find a way for you to participate today. As we listen to the water and take in each other's words and movements, I invite you to reflect on our common dependence on the element of water, as well as on our diverse ways of experiencing the waters of our lives, and relish this opportunity to witness the interdependent web of existence of which we all are a part. Dan, can you help us begin?
My name is Dan Howe. My name is Dan Howe. Dan, this is the water. Oh, what? Now it is. Okay. My name is Dan Haug. This is water from the South Skunk River. I collect a sample every month, but today is a reminder that water both literally and figuratively connects us all. What was in the Gulf is now in my veins. And
Please come on up and line up and share and pour. We know that we didn't have 3 weeks warning. We were doing water communion today.
I'm Deb Klein, and I pour this water for Amy and Suzanne Zibler, and I. We went to the MUSA camp, which stands for Midwest Unitarian Universalist Summer Assembly. I'm sorry.
We haven't used our microphones for a month, and some of our batteries went too well.
Tell about camp.
You are coming through the microphones for Zoom, so as long as you project, we can keep going.
Okay, otherwise Amy has my. Anyway, we went to this summer camp together, and it's on a beautiful private lake that we were able to go boating in. And then we spent one day on the Huzzah River from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., just floating down this beautiful river together.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.
I'm Robinson. This is water from the fountain and pond at our apartment, and it was just a very welcoming sound to hear as we moved to Ames last year.
I'm Jenny Huntington. As you know, we often go to California in the winter, but we kind of, once we feel like we've been done or really had our quota of suitcase living, we stay home in the summer, and we're glad to be in Ames. And I will pour some water for Ames Water, which I am very grateful for it. It nourishes me every day. And when we leave, I have to take bottles of it with me because the water that you sometimes encounter in other places doesn't really like me. So, another water that I'd like to tell you about is the Iowa Creek, which has been thankfully renamed. And I am very grateful for that action. I am able to spend a little time almost every day down by the creek. And sometimes I see a leaf coming down the stream, and I entertain myself by watching what will happen. Well, it doesn't go back up. It keeps on coming down. And it doesn't know that it's about to go through a waterfall. And it doesn't know that there's turbulence up ahead. But it goes anyway, and it's happily going along. And I sometimes think, that's my life, and I can't go back. And my life is going on, and I don't know what's up ahead. But I have to just go and be ready and really do the things I want to do today, because I might not get through the turbulence at the end.
Dan, then I'm going to ask you to pour for Ronnie Kahn, who's joining us through Zoom today, who wants to pour this virtual water from the Atlantic Ocean in Maine. I am so grateful to have been able to make my first journey to the Northeast due to the let-up of COVID.
Hi, we are Fritz and Ria Keinert, and like Ginny, we've decided to spend summers in Ames now that we're retired and do our traveling in winter. So this summer we didn't go very far. We were up in Leaf Lake, Minnesota. It's near Moorhead. It's apparently one of 3 lakes called Leaf Lake. They ran out of names up there after a while. So we had a lovely weekend with some friends of Ria. And then I did RAGBRAI again as usual. So this is symbolic water from our tap this morning for also the Missouri and Mississippi rivers.
I'm Nancy Tepper. I did not travel this summer, but I am very grateful to have ice from my own freezer. It's still ice. And I also want to mention that I'm grateful that a lot of the pipes are being replaced so that the water that comes through them will arrive in a good state.
Good morning, I'm Sue, and this is my husband, Dan Duvik. And we're just so grateful to be able to come and be with you today. And the water I put in here is from our tap because being home is the most important thing for us. I'm recently released from cancer treatment, so I'm just glad to be anywhere, hence the fancy haircut. And yeah, so thank you for having us, and I think the water ceremony is amazing.
It is nice. It is nice.
Thank you.
And Dan, I could ask you to pour some symbolic water for Melissa Neeson. She'd like to share water from Lake Constance, a lake on the border between Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Klaus and I visited there again after his father died. We were able to have many good memories of him as we rode bikes around the lake for a few days.
Hi, I'm David Brenner, and I'm visualizing the spring at the family farm in Rappahannock County, which is now sold. So I was there for the very last time, just about a year ago. And this is a cold, dark, sweet water, the best water I ever had, and it wouldn't pass health tests, and it goes dry, and once a rat died in the cistern, it's a problem thing for buyers, but it's the best spring water. Appalachia has a tradition of there's different special springs, and everyone has their own spring, although that's mostly faded out as they've gone to electronic systems with pumps, and still it's the coldest, darkest, and it's got a lid now, and I imagine little niches where figurine of Ganesh could just wait there, or maybe a beautiful cup. But it's so cold and dark and sweet, and the best water I'll ever have. And I guess I'll never see it again because it's sold. That was a year ago.
I'm Cheryl Lawson, and I'd like to pour water or symbolize the rain that comes down and nourishes all the plants and keeps them growing. And to I have a joy of when I was trimming the hedges down in the south parking lot, along comes Gavin on his bike. He's an Iowa State student, and he stopped. This is the kindness of strangers. He said, "Hey, would you like some help trimming that hedge?" And I said, "Oh, that's nice of you, really?" I said, I can do it. And he said, "Oh, my grandma, I helped her trim her hedge, and I can do this, and I'm just out riding my bike around." And so I said, "Oh, okay." So he's trimming the hedge, and I'm raking up the things and the trimmings, and then afterwards, I found out he was in computer science, and he took a picture of me and him and the hedge and put it on Snapchat. And then down the hill comes his roommate storming down. "Where were you?" He said. "I thought you were dead. You said you were going to ride around the block." And he said, "Well, it's okay. I was just helping Cheryl trim her hedge." And then he said, Gavin said, "Well, we can go home now." And this guy's still mad. And I hear him going up the hill saying, "What the hell's the matter with you?" He said, "Well, it's okay. I was just trimming the hedge." So anyhow, that's my story.
Sue Haug, I'd just like to pour some water symbolic of the North Sea. I was able to finally take the trip to Scotland that had been postponed several times, and I'll just be thinking about the best mussels I ever had that came fresh from the North Sea.
Dan, I'll ask you to pour some symbolic water for Sue Jarnigan. My water is from the bowls of clean Ames water around our yard that attract little toads and frogs and provide baths for many, many birds every day.
I'm Susan Norris, and I want to recognize 4 places with water. Number 1 would be Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where my 2 sisters and I, and later my brother, would go every summer, and we loved to ride the waves on the canvas rafts. And we didn't care that we got a bad canvas raft rash on our legs or anything. We would just do it all day long, and it was just such a special feeling to feel the waves kind of push you into shore. The second one is Park Rapids, Minnesota, where my family later went on vacation, and I was able to visit there a number of years ago, and had been 40 years since I'd been there to this one resort, and this emotion just overcame me because the shoreline and the memories of being with family there. Suddenly I forgot the third one. But the most recent one was visiting Iceland with my son Mark and his partner Lee, and the waterfalls. They were everywhere. And we got to do the one where you stand behind it and it's rushing in front of you. And I guess a thing that I really am thinking about today with water is how wonderful it feels to be held up by water, to float on the water and just look up at the sky, whether it's daytime or nighttime. And also the cleansing of, water washing over you. And those are some feelings that I'm really needing right now. So thank you.
Good morning. I'm Molly Helmers. I have water from our rain barrel, and I think it's leaking all over me, which is not good because this is part of my story. One, it's a precious commodity, of course, right now, and I try really hard not to turn on the hose during the summer and use only water from the rain barrel. But two, the last couple of summers, I occasionally have really stinky water in the rain barrel, and it took me a long time to figure out why it kind of came and went, this really horrible smell. Well, we realized all of this water comes off a very kind of flat, large roof. And we have a lot of chipmunks and squirrels around our house. And so when it didn't rain for a really long time, all of their urine and excrements and things collected. And then when it would rain, all of that would wash down into the rain barrel. And that's when I got my very stinky water. So I am now going to contaminate this lovely water with my rain barrel because it hasn't rained enough and it is stinky.
The circle of life must be represented.
I'm Larry Kierson. I'd like to echo Cheryl and Molly's comments with regard to our rainwater. It's free, it's pure. We're so blessed that we are able to live in this place where we have adequate water to sustain our economy and our life. And just a recognition that it seems that it is free, but we have to work hard to protect it. And I hope that we all recognize that. Thank you.
I'm Ray Lee, and this is my wife Molly. We're both originally from Michigan, so we're going to pour some symbolic water from the Great Lakes.
I'm Jan Cook, and I'm going to pour some symbolic water from two sources that are close to me, but I forgot to get water. The Skunk River flows about a mile from my house, and it's a place where I go to refresh myself, and I've seen otters playing there. And the other is a place where my family and I play, which is the lake at Peterson Park. And we have a lot of fun there.
I'm a shorty. I'm Kay Berger. Don't touch it. My first memory of water was pumping it from a windmill when I was a little girl, and my memories are fading, but this is one memory that I remember, and we'd pump the water from the windmill. There were about, I guess, 3 of us born at that time out of 6, 3 of us, and then we'd put it in a bucket. And then we had a scoop that's how we drank our water. We'd take it in the house and we'd same scoop, we all had the same germs evidently. And that's my first memory. But my most potent memory was when we moved. We've gone all around the world. We've lived in a lot of places, but we moved here can I hang on to this? We moved here about 50 years ago, and we moved into a place out by Ada Hayden. It was a gravel pit at the time. And it was kind of on the edge of Ames. And we lived there, and we watched that gravel pit for years turn into the Ada Hayden Heritage Park that it is today. And that will be always my fondest memory as we watched the water come. We lived right on the water there on Dawes Drive, and we watched that gravel pit become just the heaven that it is now. If you haven't been out there, and I would love to have you go out there and see it. It was the old Highway 69, but that's my most favorite water story. No, I'm not. Can you for it? Thank you,
Dan, you can stay there and pour water for Carol and Denny Barrick, who share that their water is from the lake in Des Moines yesterday, where they had the Barrick family reunion. They enjoyed members in their 40s who came back from Canada. They hadn't seen them since they were toddlers. Another cousin flew in from California, others from St. Louis and Iowa, connecting by the waters.
Good morning. I'm Dennis Willeen, and last night I went to the backyard and turned on the garden hose and watered the flowers and watered the garden and the shrubs, and I filled the bird bath. Well, a couple of bird baths. And I believe that this water not only stains all of that, but it also sustains me. And when I think of that, I realize that we are all one with nature that surrounds us, and we're all sustained by this water. And that leads me to believe that we are all one with all that is. And so in that respect, all is holy.
Hi, my name's Carol Crosby. I live out along Beaver Creek out in the country, and fixing water problems is pretty much the homeowner's problem. So last week when I noticed a steady trickle down in my basement, it took me too long to have it diagnosed as a break in the main water pipe. And then it took me really too long to find a plumber who would fix it. And then they cut into the gas line. So I had many days of no water and shrieking sirens. And so I really, really value my water a lot. Everything is good now. I love my place out there. And I also just wanted to add this as a note of celebration. I'm going to see all my siblings this weekend. A lot of you knew my dad, Larry Burkhalter, who was a member here. And you know, we celebrated his life a couple years ago when he died, but we're going to go over all his old photographs and slides. So looking forward to the water of Strawberry Point.
My name is Bob Anders. In 1949, my parents bought a farm in Hardin County near the town of Iowa Falls. And it was a poor farm, very sandy, but it had 80 acres of woodland and 3/4 of a mile of Iowa River frontage. And at the time, I had no idea that I was living in paradise. Well, as time went on, I became very appreciative and became aware of the beauties of the river. One of the jobs I had in my career was a county supervisor in Hardin County, where we managed drainage districts. And that opened my eyes to the concept of a watershed. I knew that I was living near the Iowa River, so I was in the Iowa River watershed. But within that, there are many watersheds. South Fork Creek is its watershed. Within the South Fork Creek, there are dozens of drainage districts that are sections of that watershed. So now I live in Ames, and I live in the College Creek watershed. I live in the Skunk River watershed, and I live in the Mississippi River watershed.
Dan, can I ask you to pour water for Maya Hazlett, who shares water from Albert Lee Lake, is reminding her of good times with friends and their love and support. And we can pour some water for Amber and take her microphone.
I'm Amber Schill, and I brought water from our well at home at our acreage by Kelly. And we also have a well at the family farm over by Cambridge, and representing the way that the earth provides for us. And I'm feeling very grateful for clean water to cleanse us and nourish us and sustain us.
Last calls. Thank you so much for all of the ways that you share yourselves with this community. We will use the waters gathered here today to water plants in our memorial garden. May the words and the water we've shared help sustain our connections to one another and to the world around us. And I think that Dennis was previewing our next hymn. I invite you to rise in body or spirit to join in singing Our World Is One World. Our next reading is from John Clare, an English Romantic poet. It is called The Thrush's Nest, to partner with the thrush song that Sue will play. Within a thick and spreading hawthorn bush that overhung a molehill large and round, I heard from morn to morn a merry thrush sing hymns to sunrise, and I drank the sound with joy. And often, as an intruding guest, I watched her secret toil from day to day, how true she warped the moss to form a nest, and modeled it within with wood and clay. And by, like heath bells gilt with dew, there lay her shining eggs as bright as flowers, ink spotted over shells of greeny blue. And there I witnessed in the sunny hours a brood of nature's minstrels chirp and fly, glad as the sunshine and the laughing sky. We will have the thrush music, Tory hymn today, and so I want to announce this morning on the 1st of August that our half of our August offering collection goes to support the Iowa Watch. It's formerly known as the Iowa Center for Public Affairs Journalism. This nonprofit, nonpartisan news service specializes in investigative journalism and supports educational efforts to help understand the role of journalism in a democracy. So we'll pass the basket here during our offertory today and remind everyone that you can log on to the UUFA website at any time to share a financial gift to support the work of this fellowship, of our partners, Black Lives Matter, our partner church, and this month, Iowa Watch. Sue.
I'm Dan Haug. Can you hear me okay if I keep my mask on? I had a COVID exposure. This reading is from Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. The Consolation of Water Lilies. She has just dropped off her daughter at college. I did not need Kleenex or the breakdown lane. After all, I wasn't going home. I could manage leaving her at college, but I did not want to go home to an empty house. Even the horses were gone, and the old family dog had died that spring. There would be no welcoming committee. I had planned for this with my special grief containment system strapped to the top of my car. Spending each weekend at track meets and hosting slumber parties, I rarely found time to go paddling alone. Now, I was going to celebrate my freedom rather than mourn my loss. You hear about those shiny red midlife crisis Corvettes? Well, mine was strapped to the top of the car. I drove down the road to Labrador Pond and slipped my new red kayak in the water. I remember just remembering the sound of the first bow wave brings back the whole of the day. Late summer afternoon, golden sun and lapis sky between the hills that fold around the pond. Red-winged blackbirds cackling in the cattails. Not a breath of wind disturbed the glassy pond. Open water sparkled ahead, but first I had to traverse the marshy edges. Beds of pickerel weed and water lilies so thick they covered the water. The long petioles of the spatterdock lilies, stretching 6 feet from the mucky bottom to the surface, tangled around my paddle as if they wanted to keep me from moving forward. Pulling away the weeds that stuck to my hull, I could see inside their broken stalks. They were packed with spongy white cells, filled with air like a pith of styrofoam, that botanists call erenchyma. These air cells are unique to floating water plants and give the leaves buoyancy, like a built-in life jacket. This characteristic makes it very hard to paddle through, but they serve a larger purpose. Pond lily leaves get their light and air at the surface, but are attached to the bottom of the lake to a living rhizome as thick as your wrist and as long as your arm. The rhizome inhabits the anaerobic depths of the pond, but without oxygen, it will perish. So, the erenchyma forms a convoluted chain of air-filled cells, a conduit between the surface and the depths so that oxygen can slowly diffuse to the buried rhizome. If I pushed the leaves aside, I could see them resting below. Mired in the weeds, I rested for a bit, surrounded by water shield, fragrant water lily, rushes, wild calla, and the eccentric flowers known variously as yellow pond lily, bullhead lily, Nuphar luteum, spatterdock, and brandy bottle. That last name is rarely heard, but is perhaps most apt, as the yellow flowers sticking up from the dark water emit a sweet alcoholic scent. It made me wish I had brought a bottle of wine. Once the showy brandy bottle flowers have accomplished their goal of attracting pollinators, they bend below the surface for several weeks, suddenly reclusive while their ovaries swell. When the seeds are mature, the stalks straighten again and lift above the water the fruit, a curiously flask-shaped pod with a bright-colored lid that looks like its namesake, a miniature brandy cask about the size of a shot glass. I've never witnessed it myself, but I'm told that the seeds pop dramatically from the pod onto the surface, earning one of their other names, spatterdock. All around me there were lilies in all stages of rising and sinking and re-emerging, a waterscape of change that is hard to move through. But I bent to the task, pushing my red boat through the green. I paddled hard and strong out to deep water, pulling against the weight of their straining vegetation, eventually breaking free. When I had exhausted my shoulders so they were as empty as my heart, I rested on the water, closed my eyes, and let the sadness come. Adrift. And maybe a little breeze came up, maybe a hidden current, or the earth tilting on its axis to slosh the pond, but whatever invisible hand, my little boat began to rock gently like a cradle on the water. Held by the hills and rocked by the water, the hand of the breeze against my cheek, I gave myself over to the comfort that came unbidden. I don't know how long I floated, but my little red boat drifted the length of the lake. Rustling whispers around my hull drew me from my reverie, and the first thing I saw upon opening my eyes were polished green leaves of water lilies and spatterdock, smiling up at me, rooted in the darkness and floating in the lights. I found myself surrounded by hearts on the water, luminous green hearts. The lilies seemed to pulse with light, green hearts beating with my own. There were young heart leaves below the water on their way up, and old leaves on the surface, some with edges tattered by the summer of wind and waves, and no doubt kayak paddles. Scientists used to think that the movement of oxygen from the surface leaves of the lilies to the rhizome was merely the slow process of diffusion, an inefficient drift of molecules from a region of high concentration in the air to low concentration underwater. But new inquiries revealed that the flow we could have known by intuition if we had remembered the teachings of plants. The new leaves take up oxygen into the tightly packed air spaces of their young developing tissues, whose density creates a pressure gradient. The older leaves, with looser air spaces created by the tatters and tears that open the leaf, create a low pressure region where oxygen can be released into the atmosphere. This gradient exerts a pull on the air taken in by the young leaf. Since they are connected by air-filled capillary networks, the oxygen moves by mass flow from the young leaves to the old, passing through and oxygenating the rhizome in the process. The young and the old are linked in one long breath, an inhalation that calls for reciprocal exhalation, nourishing the common root from which they both arose. New leaf to old to new, mother to daughter, mutuality endures. I am consoled by the lesson of lilies.
Mindful of our time and some possibly melting yogurt, I invite us to move to our closing song, and then we'll extinguish our chalice. 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. We'll do the first verse together. Please rise.
Our closing words. Our closing words are by Lucille Clifton, blessing the boats at St. Mary's. May the tide that is entering even now the lip of our understanding carry you out beyond the face of fear. May you kiss the wind, then turn from it, certain that it will love your back. May you open your eyes to water, water waving forever, and may you, in your innocence, sail through this to that. Thank you for everyone who made this service possible today. If you're joining us at home, please stay on for some virtual coffee hour and fellowship. If you're here in the hall, please join us for some frozen yogurts.